Hi, I want to comment on 1 John chapter 1 verse 9. If we confess our sins, he is faithful and just to forgive us our sins and to cleanse us from all unrighteousness. So when we look at that verse, we may think we always need to confess all the time in order to be forgiven. And yes, it's good to confess, but we have to look at what the word confess means. If you look at the Greek, the word confess literally means be of the same mind. And so a better translation would be to acknowledge. We need to acknowledge our faults and our failures to God, not in order to gain his love, but because we are loved. I think about the chapter in Luke chapter 15 about the prodigal son. And in that chapter, we get the image of a father who embraces his son before he even confesses, before he even says anything. So we need to, when we approach God in confession, we need to know that we don't confess in order to gain God's love, but we confess because we are loved. And we need to acknowledge our faults in order that we can make changes. So I feel like God has already forgiven us even before we make our confession, whatever that confession may be. And I think that frees us up to know that we are loved no matter what, because we have to remind ourselves that God's love is deep and abiding, and He loves us before we confess, before we say anything, and we can approach confession in that way, and not in like a dread of His displeasure, but because we already have His pleasure.